Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Friday night. It is July 7th, 2023, about 10:22 here along the west coast in the state of California. Latest quake shows a 1.6 coming into the Southern California area. Let's go ahead and jump in to the west coast first, see what we got going on. Notice a little bit of elevated movement here across the southern portion of the state and also off the coast here, central coast here of California. Seeing some activity just off the San Simeon fault system. Pretty lengthy fault that runs here along the west side of the plate boundary, the Pacific Plate. A little bit of activity coming in earlier this morning, couple twos. There's a little bit of movement here on the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault within the last hour near Parkfield. That is a 1.6 coming in. But also down here in Southern California, a noticeable uptick in movement today for sure. 3.2 near the Lake Elsinore area, about 9 kilometers deep. Also some movement across the San Bernardino Mountains here on the North American side of the plate boundary. A couple earthquakes right smack dab on the San Andreas Fault, the southern segment. Looks like mostly smaller microquakes, but as you can see, a definite noticeable uptick here in earthquake activity. Bringing up the 2.5 map and above shows the earthquakes taking place here above the 2.5 level. Had about 3 of them today, with that 3.2 near the Lake Elsinore area being the largest. So definitely uptick across the region. Also, we're getting a little swarming going on here outside the Santa Rosa area. Now, this is away from the Calpine hydrothermal operations. This is Clear Lake volcanic field where they have all those hydrothermal plants. Getting some activity further to the south here near St. Helena area. Looks like a couple 2s and some 1s out here over the last, most of it occurring today. So slight uptick here across the Coast Range north of the bay. Also here off the Macama Fault, little coastal fault system showing a 2.9 near the Brooks Trail area. Brook Trails, excuse me. And also further up north into the Cascadia, some movement from yesterday, and also another 1.5 early this morning here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's see what we got for the tremor here tonight. 198 epicenters total tally. The only thing different here, looks like most of this is situated here around the Vancouver Island ranges. So we'll watch for some further activity up there. It kind of looks like we're already seeing a little bit of movement inland, just to the south of where that tremor activity is occurring. Notice this earthquake here outside the Oak Harbor area early this morning. Earthquake down there where the tremor normally takes place, about 45 kilometers deep. Also a little scattered activity across the region. Oregon. See what we got for Oregon here. One earthquake down around the Newberry volcano. Very small earthquake. A couple smaller quakes here across the Cascades as well. Looks like Utah's seen a slight uptick here around the Great Salt Lake City area, and a little bit further to the south there around the Cedar City, north of Cedar City near Beaver. Looks like some very small microquake activity going on there. A glance here at Yellowstone National Park. Let's go ahead and pull this up, see what we have. Not a whole lot at all. Looks like there was maybe some, kind of looks like some thunderstorm activity here, potentially. And we can definitely just double check that and make sure. I normally use the windy map here. This will give you a good indicator of storms brewing out across the area. Now let's go to the satellite, or weather radar, excuse me. See what we have going on over the last 6 hours up around the Yellowstone region. Doesn't look like it's quite as broad of a thunderstorm event today. Most of it looks like it is down south where that noise is being picked up. There's a little storm right here within the last hour, and that's going to be showing up here on the map. We had some earlier, and it looks like here within the last couple hours as well. But as far as earthquake activity goes, not really seeing too much on the menu here today. Just looks Looks like a typical day there at Yellowstone. Maybe a couple very small earthquakes here, maybe, but that's about it. All right, back to the USGS map here. Rest of the country fairly quiet. Some movement out across Oklahoma and Texas area. Down here across the Puerto Rico Trench, still seeing some movement. In the last 24 hours, seen a little handful. There's that 4.9 down into the Port of Spain, near the Trinidad and Tobago area, 84 kilometers deep. The latest quake, though, in this region shows a 2.1 there at southwestern edge of Puerto Rico. South America, handful of earthquakes here, although it looks a little bit calmer here today. Last quake was a 4.5 this morning, far as the moderate quake activity goes. Getting a little bit of movement up here across the Aleutian Trench as well. Seen 4.0, somewhat deep. Well, it's not really deep, but it's deeper than the shallower earthquake that struck following that movement. So 4.0 and then a 4.3 subsequently occurring upstream along the plate boundary. Watch that for some potential movement. The Western Pacific here shows that it's quiet, but I got a notification here recently of a quake there in Japan. So we're going to have to bring up the EMSC model because these are some older movement quakes, it looks like, here across the area. Let me fix that. I still haven't got the EMSC data on here. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I did write the developer of this app, see what they say. I may have to get a whole new update here on the Earthquake 3D globe. So for now, just the USGS showing up here on the map. So we'll go to the official EMSC page. There is that 4.1 coming in. Looks like 0437 UTC time on the 8th. So that's going to be literally within the last hour. I pulled up the last hour of activity. That's about 10 kilometers deep. Also a little bit of movement down into New Zealand as well within the last hour. 3.4, 194 kilometers deep. A little bit of movement. There's that activity there in Puerto Rico. The Atlantic, 2.3, out there in the Azores Island area. There's some movement out here around Turkey as well. A handful of earthquakes in the last hour, mostly smaller microquakes going on out there. Let's check out the GeoNet servers here and see what we have for data. There's that 3.1 3 hours ago. Although this is showing 14 kilometers deep, so a little bit of looks like a little bit of difference there on the depth of that earthquake. 14 kilometers deep. Aside from that, mostly smaller microquakes for now. Earthquake drums will show a hopefully a calm scene. There's that 3-pointer. For the most part, yeah, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on here across New Zealand currently. That's always subject to change, though, right? Up into the Tonga area, 5.0, 22 kilometers deep for that quake. Let's see what else we got. It looks awfully quiet over here across the Western Pacific. 4.2, Indonesia, earlier this morning, about 40 kilometers deep. In this type of setup, normally we'll watch the west coast here, the eastern portion of the Pacific Plate. And it has been relatively active here today across the west coast. So we'll keep the west coast in a line potentially for some larger scale movement until we see that major adjustment take place here across the Western Pacific. Right now, like I said, there was only that one 4-point, or what was it? The EMSC showing that 4-pointer there in Japan. USGS doesn't look like they've picked up on it yet, but a little bit of activity trying to make its way in that area. But for now, we'll keep an eye here on the west coast with the elevated movement basically along the entire plate boundary here, Southern California northward. Definitely showing some heightened activity today. The big island of Hawaii, out in the middle of it all, shows mostly some movement across the Pahala area, getting a little bit of activity around the Loihi Seamount. This earthquake activity down there about 38, 37 kilometers deep underneath this region. A look at the space weather activity, or lack thereof for now. We do have a giant sunspot region here. Let's bring up the most recent imagery. That's going to be this sunspot right here. Pretty massive. There's actually numerous large sunspots here that are currently facing us, but 3363 down there is it's a good one. Definitely a good size sunspot. This is a visible disk, and I think it takes the cake, right, far as the largest sunspot so far in the current image. So looking at the structure here, we'll watch this. I'm noticing down south here, or at least the southern portion of the sunspot region, is getting some further developing cores within that structure, and same for the north as well. That's a sign that this thing is growing, not dying, but growing in size and complexity. So we'll watch that for some large flaring here, if it can manage to continue to stay in that developing phase. Also here across the southern area of the sun, this region, it's kind of been going off and on here over the past couple days, although today it looks like it's a little less active. Maybe watch this core up here, and potentially up here as well. But I think the main threat for now is going to be this area on the southeastern limb of the sun. We'll watch that. Again, that's 3363. Overall threat looks like a 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 35, X flare about 5% chance. So we'll continue to watch that for some flaring. Right now, though, flare activity is very minimal. There was a little bit of C flare movement here in the last few hours. Let's see, what do we got for coronal holes? This one up here, 23, looks like it's starting to fill in a little bit. Notice that little feature here starting to dissipate this coronal hole. I was hoping for that to stay. This kind of looks like a sad face again, maybe. I don't know. This is kind of weird. The sun does tend to put out some interesting images on occasion, but I was hoping 23 would hold up to maybe enhance the solar weather here in the coming days. But we'll keep an eye on that. For now, though, things are fairly calm in the 3-day geomagnetic forecast here. Not seeing a whole lot of auroras to be stirred up. Looks like right now, though, maybe slight unsettled conditions up there into Canada, pending you have some dark skies. But again, no major space weather event currently taking place right now. A look at the Storm Prediction Center current day 1 outlook still shows some activity in western Oklahoma. An enhanced risk with a little bit of tornado potential there tonight. Looks like main threat's going to be some damaging wind gusts. A look at tomorrow shows a broader area of severe weather, but again, only a 2% chance in that green category. Main threat's going to be some wind and some hail. Let's see what we got for any hurricane development out here. The tropics kind of stirring up off the coast of Mexico there. Let's check out the forecast models and see what we got. I want to go out here to the regions, and might be able to see it on this one. We'll take a look here, see if anything's stirred up here in the forecast models. Here's the hurricane down there off the coast of Mexico, scooting off, and dissipating, it looks like, as it enters into the Pacific. The Atlantic over here, I'm not really seeing anything major going on or developing. We'll see about this hurricane here. It looks like maybe another one stirring up, heading off towards Hawaii, north of Hawaii, but of course that's all subject to change. These models are just kind of a general indicator, potentially, of what could be developing. A look at the pressure map here. We got cooler conditions right now here in California. When I was out in Texas, we dodged a whole bunch of 110 degree days, luckily. But that's not going to last long. We got a little coolness going on here over the next few days before some ridging takes place out here along the west coast, and that's going to bring us back well above 100 and start cooking us once again. But that kind of looks like it's a pattern of some ridging, and then that's followed up by some troughing here, some cooler weather, and that's been our pretty much been our consistent weather pattern here along the west coast for a little while. Looks like a portion of the Midwest and the the Great Lakes area staying fairly cool. But I'm not seeing any dominant high pressure systems. Dominant ridging would be this up here, the deep, dark red color, or yeah, it's kind of red, which would be an indicator of a high, very strong high pressure system. And I just don't see it developing anywhere across the west for now, and that's good. We'll keep that at bay. It's been kind of a crazy year for weather activity out here, but we'll take it. I mean, I definitely enjoyed the cooler weather. So here is the May 2023. Well, this is let's see here. You think they would have another update here from June? But here's the current El Nino and La Nina pattern. We're still looking at elevated sea surface temperatures across the equator area. That's where the El Nino is developing. Now that does play a major part in weather across many areas, including here in the States as well. But it looks like, let's see what we got here. I'm not going to read all that. It looks like a 56% chance of November through January of an El Nino, with an 84% chance of exceeding moderate strength in the winter, gradually strengthening into the northern hemisphere winter 2023-2024. Now what that does is provides the west coast area with a lot of rain. Most of the time when we have an El Nino out here, California gets a lot of rainfall. So that would be rather interesting, because we just had a very wet and snowy winter this past season. So we'll see if we can't keep that going. That would be nice to have another wet, very wet winter. Hopefully. We'll definitely see how this plays out, though. Not a whole lot of activity currently ongoing on the sun. Well, obviously there's sunspot activity, but it hasn't been, effective here on Earth as far as any massive CME goes. But I want to look at this once we do get hit with a large CME. This is the geoelectric field 1 minute data, and this kind of tells you where potential troubles could arise with power grids, power systems, potential overloads and whatnot. And that's courtesy of the USGS and the NRCAN network, intensity scales and whatnot. For now, it's fairly minimal, but I want to see how this looks once we get a good CME rolling through here. This is from the Space Weather Prediction Center.noaa.gov. Watch this here in the future. Hopefully, if we ever get any CMEs, see how that plays out. All right, folks, I'm off here. Oh, shoot, we're coming up already on the member drawing. We got about 8 days before we do another member drawing here. I see a couple folks have been gifted the channel membership. Thank you very much for gifting those memberships there. I believe that was Harlita Javika that donated those. If you want to be entered into the drawing, make sure you guys become a member here before the 15th of this month. We'll pull out a lucky winner here in about 7 or 8 days. We'll go over that, of course, more as we get closer. It seems like we just already had it, but it's been a crazy past couple weeks being out in Texas and storm chasing and whatnot. Nothing major going on for the buoys. That's always a good sign. No major no tsunamis out there. But it's been a little while since we've had a major quake, like a mega quake. What do we got stirring up down here? 4.9. This is the area that has seen quite a bit of movement here recently. Look at the last 30 days of activity in this region. This all started following this very deep 7.2. stirred up a whole bunch of earthquake activity in this region. Seen some 6s and some 5s. It's still possible to see something larger, maybe. It is still showing some signs of activity. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime. Have a safe Friday night. Take care, folks.